Good evening and welcome to the Psych Call Shop. I'm Aeson Knight and I'm sitting down with Sharon tonight. Now, you're over at Zodiac. You work on Fortunica now also, baby doll? Did we
No,
get you
just
on there finally?
not yet. Just Zodiac Psychics.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, Miss Brenda. How you? Hope you have your coffee. Um, so, darling, how'd you start reading?
From a very young age, I've been very attracted to crystals, that sort of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I was able to just tell people's moods and not moods, but feelings and that sort of thing. Like they
Mm-hmm.
were my own, but they weren't.
Right.
And it got very confusing for me. And then I started. My mom actually is a psychic as well,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. So with that, it all started a long time ago, just before my grandfather passed away, and yeah, he. My favorite song is just weird, but anyway, my favorite song was my grandfather's clock. I don't know if you heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
Stop short, never to go again.
Mm-hmm.
When the old man died, right? So when he died, he had a grandfather clock, and it stopped when he died on that day. And
Wow.
my father was actually trying to change the batteries or something. And I went in there and I just touched it and it started working. And that was that was an eye
Yeah.
opener. Yeah, and just strange things like that, dreams and that sort of thing, and just knowing things before they happen. And then my grandmother was struggling after my grandfather died, and she had a bad illness, and my mom asked me to find out when she would pass because she was going through a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this scribing thing where you just write
Mm-hmm.
without
Right.
looking. And my grandfather actually came with me into me. He had passed already, and
Mm-hmm.
told me the date. And she died on that day. Mm.
Interesting. So that then moved you into working with grief and dealing with grief a lot then.
Yeah, recently, my best friend passed in on the 19th of May, and just the experience of it all has taught me. I mean, she had cancer for 2 years, and before she told me she had stage 4 cancer, I already knew. I didn't tell her. I waited for her to tell me, and I thought, I know she's going to die and everything's going to be fine, but it wasn't. It was still the shock and everything that went with it. But on that night after I found out she had passed, I had an amazing experience, a dream. And her favorite thing was she'd always say she's tired of being humanizing or being a human. She wants to be a unicorn. And that night we both flew on a unicorn and together, and she was such an amazing person. And yeah, it's just things like that made me realize that we are humans here, but our soul or spirit, whatever you want to call it, energy carries on, and they are still around us. And if they're willing, they can join
Right.
or speak to us. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Join
Mm.
us, speak to us. Just for clarification, you're from South Africa. You speak a mixture of South African English because there's a different tone to it. So let's just let our listeners understand where you're at. So it's like, oh, yeah, now I get
Okay. All right. My father lives in England, so
Uh-huh.
that's probably where you're getting the British thing from.
Uh-huh.
And my mum was born here, but her parents were born in Britain.
Ah, okay. So, yeah. So you're, there's a little bit of a differencing in tone, but it's an amazing. I love,
Yeah.
hanging out with you. Brenda loves the accent. So what was it like? So you grow up in like England half the time and you summered in Cape Town, or you just stayed in Cape Town?
No, my mom, we were married to another British guy. He's my father. So
Uh-huh.
my biological father is in England. Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
I've grown up in South Africa.
I, so what was it like growing up in Cape Town? Because if I'm gauging the age right, you grew up in a tumultuous town in South Africa.
A what? Sorry?
A tumultuous time? Like there was a lot of changes in the culture and a lot of changes in government there.
Yeah, I actually matriculated in '94. I think that's when Mandela became president. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I had no idea about anything about the
Hmm.
apartheid or anything. I mean, I was a child. I had no
Right.
idea that was happening,
So there
and
wasn't a large culture change.
not for me. No,
No.
a little bit. I mean, I didn't understand what was going on at that time.
Hmm.
Mm.
Right. Um, how psychics receive there? Like, do you have a large in-person clientele?
No, that's why I do most of my work online. We
Uh-huh.
do have, I think, like in South Africa, especially the Black community, they do have witch doctors who do similar
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, not really.
Not really.
I mean, I help my friends and strangers that I meet and
Right.
stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah,
Yeah.
not. I haven't actually ventured into South
You are
Africa.
too.
Maybe I should.
Yeah, I think you should. Because I know we have a large listening audience in your local, like in the country of South Africa. That's why I was like, oh, so
Good.
how? So I was like, oh, maybe you have your own office there or whatever. But no, you guys can reach her over at Zodiac Psychics. I'll go ahead and throw that link out in the live chat. So I'll pull it back up. Thank you for refreshing Zodiac. We just love it when you do that. So how do you think grief affects our experience here?
It's all I can describe it is it's the most painful experience as a human, because the way I believe is that we're souls when we came into this existence, and we become souls again, or we'll become spirits after we exit the human body. And as a human, we don't, and as previous souls, we don't expect to have that termination because we are eternal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's my belief anyway. So when someone as close as your best friend or your mother or father or someone very close to you just disappears, gone, it's a huge shock. It's the
Right.
worst pain that I've experienced, and I've been through a lot. So I just
Right.
think it's a major thing for human to experience, being a soul as well.
Right. I don't know. Sometimes I think we get it backwards. Or I know the other side, in my opinion, gets it backwards. Like we grieve them when they leave. I think they grieve them when they come.
Yeah, that's true as well. But for us who are left behind, um, missing that person is something we naturally will grieve. Obviously,
Hmm.
leaving is cool,
Right.
but while we're here, missing the person who has passed is huge.
Hmm. So, what are some signs when we know that they've crossed over? Because, like, many beliefs, they don't believe that the soul actually, it takes like 30 days to get picked up. What's your thoughts
Um,
on that one?
well, I'm not quite sure because I think I know that, like, for example, my grandfather and my grandmother were around for quite a while before they left. Unless I call
Right.
them in, they.
Right.
And I know my friend is still here. She's still around because I can sort of feel her. So it's not a time like, you know, time is a human thing. We've
Right.
made up this whole time thing. There is
Right.
no time. It doesn't
Right.
exist. It's not a thing. So because like myself, I took it hard, even though I knew she was going to pass. I didn't know. It shocked me how badly it affected me, and but she has been around, and strange things happen that I feel comforted, or you know, or I just feel warm all of a sudden, or I feel, you know, I can see her bright blue eyes, you know, something of her that reminds me of her. So
Right.
they don't leave really until I believe until someone has got into that, I hate the word, acceptance. I don't think anyone really accepts that someone
Right.
has gone. They get used to the idea.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, it's time for, like they start going on in their life on the other side and adjusting to it and seeing where things are at. And then for us, that's when we got to start making peace and figuring out, now what do we do? Now, how do we
Yes.
handle this? And I think that
Absolutely.
sometimes people think that it's like, oh, it's been 3 weeks. You ought to be over this by now. And it doesn't work that way.
No, not at all. It takes a long time, or time. Like I said, it doesn't exist.
Right.
So sometimes, you know, if it's really bad, you need to go for therapy. Other times, you know, it will take as long as it takes. And the good things to remember to do is, one thing I've done is like I've written her a letter, because a lot of the time the things in my case I experienced was guilt. You know, not saying goodbye, not the last time I spoke to her, I was crying. You know, that's because I was going to miss it. You know, and all of that.
Right.
So guilt is a big thing, and then it's getting over that and working through it. And then she keeps on saying to me, you know, over there they are happy. They don't feel any pain, absolutely none, no emotional, no physical pain, obviously, and we do.
Yeah.
So, and I'm so happy and relieved for her because she's no longer in pain, physical pain.
Right.
It's the healing of myself that needed to happen, which did. Anyway.
Right. And I think people that try to rush that is that healing of yourself. Like they want to get it over with and get it done. And they'll go, oh, I'm great, I'm grand. And then, a song pops on the radio, or, something else pops on, and it's like, oh, I can't deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm at the stage where I can feel her energy is good, and I feel good as well. But before that, it was ups and downs, and mostly downs where I'll just get angry. I'll get angry at the universe or God or whatever you believe in, I believe in, or you believe in.
Right.
Or then I'd start crying, and then all different emotions, all at the same time. Different. It's not a set thing, and eventually, I started to feel, that I started to change my my own development, start looking after myself. That's very important, because grieving, one often forgets to look after themselves.
Right.
And
I think caregiving ties into that too, is because you get into that lifestyle as a caregiver. And then you get stuck in that, oh, I got to, and then when it's over with, it's not a breath, it takes you a while to break that cycle of being always on guard, always listening for the bed rattle, always, up at 5 a.m. because you're supposed to feed at 5 or whatever your routine was.
Yeah.
And I think we don't have good handling on that anymore, especially since I know for the American culture, we've divorced death as much as possible. We call the
Yeah.
undertaker, they pick up the body. They have the funeral within 24 hours, the wake and the funeral the same day. And into the ground you go, or in off to, the crematory you go. But there's no more of that time sitting with the body, making peace with the body, making peace, washing the body, caring for the body.
Yeah.
What
That's
do y'all do there, and how do you think it affects the modern grief cycle?
it's also very fast. It goes, yeah, most of the time we don't see the body. It's just boom, bam, bang into the
Right.
crematorium. It's too fast. And I think that is a big problem. I mean, everyone has someone who they love, who has passed,
Hmm.
or who is going to pass. We are all going to go through it. And the way that humans are doing it these days is horrible, because we celebrate birthdays, but when it comes to grief, we are not celebrating that life,
Right.
that person, and that's what
Hmm.
we need to do. I really think we need to do that for ourselves as well.
Right. Right. Now, do you think it makes a difference to them on the other side?
I think I mean, I do know that they don't feel like, but they do get sad when someone is like overwhelmingly
Hmm.
depressed, or like can't handle, just stuck,
Right.
and that affects them. And I think, for it'd be better if they saw us celebrating their life, looking at, you know uh, like in my instance, I did the whole grieving process
Hmm.
alone, because I'm
Hmm.
an advisor. um I help people, but I wasn't getting any help. So, yeah. So eventually I reached out to a friend of hers, and that's how, actually a week ago. And because she knew my friend,
Hmm.
and we started a friendship, and that's how I managed to cure, or not
Right.
cure, but managed to get over it.
Right. I managed to move on for the moment.
That's the word, right?
Yeah, I think it's in Norway. They have a saying that translates to English, upright and not crying. When they go, how you doing? Oh, I'm upright and not crying. And I'm like, that fits a lot of people, especially when we are advisors and we help people move through some of the hardest moments of their life, whether it's losing
Mhm.
a family member, losing whatever, losing a job. Like those are all deaths. And I think people don't connect those with the grieving process,
Mhm.
because we become our jobs, you know.
Definitely. I had to take a couple of months off,
Hmm.
because, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because helping another person while I can't help myself is no use. So,
No, it's no use.
but
And
I
you brought
mean,
up you didn't have help until you reach out to a friend. Why didn't you reach out to another advisor? Or or are you like me and it's like, it takes a special advisor to hit me?
yeah, I
Yeah.
actually got therapy. So, yeah.
Good.
Anyway,
That's fabulous. I recommend therapy so often. And
absolutely.
qualified therapy
Yes,
is
yes.
important. There is things that I as a life coach can handle, I as a psychic can handle, you as a life coach can handle, you as a psychic can handle. But therapy in itself, that is a whole different realm than what we do. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. She helped me a lot with, just because they're trained to do that. They're trained to
Right.
help people in a certain way. And as psychics, I can help a person to such an extent, but not as well as a qualified therapist could do, like a
Right. Well, not only
psychologist.
that, but the fee we charge is like 3 times more. I mean, calculate our hourly rate. I mean, like my hourly rate is $152 an hour. Like, that's not the same fee as a therapist. Like,
Okay,
when we
well,
say go to therapy, go see a therapist, it's A, you're out of my scope of practice. B, I'm going to cost you more than they are. And C, you're going to get more from their services.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it's different. A therapist, for me, I mean, they do cost a lot here,
Okay.
and it's just because I don't know. With a psychic or an advisor or life coach,
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a daily thing, or for me, it's more like of that. But when it comes to something as serious as depression caused by
Mm-hmm.
grief, that's when you need to see a therapist.
Right.
When you just want to have closure, like say you want to know something about the person who has passed on, something that only that spirit or soul would know,
Mm-hmm.
and say their daughter wants to know something about a certain thing, that's where I can help, or we can help, you know.
Well, you can help. I'm no medium.
Okay.
I can
All
do
right, sorry.
mediumship, but I'm truly a large, honey.
Okay. Yeah.
So with that, you just rely, with the, and I think sometimes we get crosshaired, meaning people come to us thinking that we can do the therapy part of it. And it's like, no, honey, we can provide the
Mm,
answers. We can give you tools, but it's you that has to do the work, or it's you and your therapist that have to do the work.
absolutely. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can guide them in a certain way, but when it comes to serious medical things and anything medical, therapists
Right.
definitely.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, very much so. All right. So, what tools do you enjoy using?
Um, I use a traditional tarot cards. What they called again? I just
Yeah,
call them
the
these.
Rider-Waite tarot cards.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly that. And then I just get feelings, sort of like visions,
Hmm.
colors, pictures, that sort of thing in my mind,
Hmm.
and yeah,
Right.
it's,
So,
I call them
classic clairvoyant.
guardian angels.
Yeah. Right.
Mm.
And then, so I was looking at your service page here, and you've got like the 10-card traditional spread, which is nice. And then you have a toxic cleansing, negative energy removal. Tell us a little bit
Mm.
about that.
Okay, well, I believe that our bodies store a lot of, like, say we we have trauma, past trauma,
Hmm.
childhood trauma, anything like that, breakups, which is also a sign of type of grief. Any trauma related negative energy that we store it in our bodies as energy, and that can, I believe, can cause illnesses and or build up and cause problems. And with the toxic cleansing, I basically go through the 7 chakras. So it's a kind of a hypnosis meditation.
Hmm.
But I also specifically, for the client, whatever they're dealing with, whatever trauma they're dealing with, I would focus on that specific energy to get that out. So it's sort of like pulling out, I would call it pulling out the,
Mhm.
the dark, toxic energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what effects have you seen with that?
Very good. Like I've done it with people I know, and it helps. I've done it with myself. And I use crystals for that as well. If I'm with a person online, I would do an audio type of thing, and the results are. It depends how how advanced you are in meditation. I mean, I've done hypnosis meditation, or I've listened to it, and I do it, practice it, listen to other people very often. So I'm used to it. But if someone listens to the audio over and over, they will slowly, get used to the whole hypnosis meditation thing, and it'll help them relax more and start moving, getting the energy moving and clearing out.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You've done it very well, my dear. You've done it very well. Well, it's been
Okay.
great talking with you. Now, give your username on zodiacpsychics.com so they can find you.
It's old one. It's SHAN.
Yeah.
Shan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great talking with you, hon.
Love diving into metaphysical topics, psychic insights, and lively discussions? Now you can help keep the conversation going. By becoming a Patreon supporter of The Psychic Coffee Shop, you'll gain access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insights, and special perks just for our patrons. Join our community and ensure that your favorite psychic show continues to thrive. Your support helps us bring more enlightening episodes, special guests, and deep dives into the world of the unseen. Become a patron today and enjoy a cup of wisdom with us every week. Click the link to join the baristas and unlock exclusive content. Thank you for your support.
Unlock your full potential with Aeson Knight's life coaching. Are you ready to take control of your life and manifest the future you deserve? Aeson Knight, a seasoned life coach and master psychic, is here to guide you on a transformative journey. Whether you're navigating personal challenges, career transitions, or seeking spiritual growth, Aeson's life coaching services offer tailored guidance to help you achieve your goals. With Aeson by your side, you'll discover the tools to overcome obstacles, embrace your true self, and create a life filled with purpose and fulfillment. His unique blend of spiritual insight and practical coaching empowers you to turn your dreams into reality. Ready to make a change? Book your session today and start your journey to a more empowered, balanced, and joyful life with Aeson Knight. Click the link to schedule your first session and step into your power.
Are you ready for an electrifying podcast experience that keeps you coming back for more? Join Aeson Knight every week as he takes you on a journey through captivating shows, each exploring unique and fascinating topics. And here's the best part. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode where you can get your burning questions answered live on air, absolutely free. Whether it's relationship advice, career guidance, or mystical insights, Aeson's podcasts have got you covered. When you subscribe, you become part of a vibrant community, engaging directly with Aeson as he shares his wisdom and leaves you feeling empowered and enlightened. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation. What you'll get by subscribing: Monday 5 p.m. Metaphysics. Today, soulful conversations with Aeson Knight and Firefly, exploring the essence of metaphysics in today's world. Tuesday 8 p.m. The Psychic Coffee Shop. Dive into current events with a psychic twist, featuring special guests and thought-provoking discussions. Friday 9 p.m. The Mountain Bears Podcast. Lively discussions from a gayish, techie-ish, bearish perspective with Aeson and Joe. Sunday 5 p.m. Psychic That Plans. Get a weekly tarot energy overview and time management tips from Aeson Knight. Click here to subscribe now and never miss an episode. By subscribing, you're not just tuning in, you're joining a community of curious minds and ensuring you're always in the loop with Aeson's insightful and interactive shows. Don't wait. Hit that subscribe button and get ready for an amazing podcast journey.
Ready for an enchanting journey of self-discovery? Join Lord Aeson Knight in our Wicca courses. Unveil the secrets of Wicca. Explore deity relationships, rituals, and more. As a third-degree high priest, Aeson Knight guides you toward empowerment and enlightenment. Enroll today and take your first step into the magical circle. Click the link to begin your journey.
Psychic Saturday. Get 50% off with Aeson Knight every third Saturday of the month. Don't miss out. Book now.
Good evening, my darling. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
Doing well, doing well. All right, so there's an article that I normally like to keep my interviews to just my interview, then the two spots on, our two Reddit spots, but this one won't keep. So let's dig in. This one is annoying.
Yeah, so from People, we get Wells Fargo employee found dead in her cubicle 4 days after she clocked in for work. Denise Prudhomme, 60, was found dead on August 20th after arriving for work 4 days earlier in Tempe, Arizona. The Wells Fargo employee in Arizona was found dead in her cubicle 4 days after she clocked into work. On Friday, August the 16th, at around 7 a.m. local time, Denise Prudhomme, 60, arrived at the company's office near Priest Drive and Washington Street in Tempe, police said in a statement obtained by People. We can confirm Denise was a Wells Fargo employee. Denise last scanned into the building on Friday, August the 16th, at approximately 7 a.m., and there is no further scan in or out, Tempe police added. Prudhomme's body was discovered at a third-floor desk in the office by on-site security on Tuesday, August the 20th. The preliminary investigation did not show any obvious signs of foul play, police said. We have no further information at this time, as this is an ongoing investigation. Her cause of death will be determined by the county's medical examiner's office. Police had responded to the location after receiving reports about a subject down, according to Arizona's family. The outlet stated authorities said there was no obvious signs of foul play. Wells Fargo told People in a statement that the company was deeply saddened by the loss of our colleague. Our thoughts are with her family and loved ones, and we are in contact to ensure they are well supported during this difficult time, their statement added. We are committed to the safety and wellness of our workforce and are reviewing our own internal procedures after this event, the company concluded. Counselors are available to support any employees impacted by this event. Wells Fargo told USA Today that the company spoke to Prudhomme's family before addressing employees about her death, noting that Prudhomme had been sat in a very underpopulated area of the office. The Maricopa County Medical Examiner's Office will now determine a cause of death per Arizona's family. According to NBC affiliate KPNX, an unnamed employee said that several people said they smelled a, quote, foul odor, but passed it off as faulty plumbing. The publication added that the building has 24/7 security, but most employees at the Tempe location work remotely.
Yeah. 4 days. 4 days. If this building has 24-hour security, is it more than a passcode at the door?
I'm thinking it's one of those tall cube farm layouts and multiple floors of it. And I would say that most of what they're doing is looking for like suspicious activity and abnormal sounds and movement. Like they're doing quick checks and then responding to any reported events. So in terms of security, I can understand how they wouldn't notice. Because again, if it's the really tall height, like the 5-foot cue balls,
right?
And that many floors of them, it can be really easy to miss some, especially depending upon how some buildings are laid out. It may literally be a blind spot in security. That it's this weird little nook, so to speak, that you don't walk through, you don't go through. No one else really has a desk there. It may seem like there are no more used cubicles, because there are a lot of offices that have done that, especially between workers going remote, downsizing of staffs, and the number of companies that have just failed to replace workers that have left.
Right. My other question is, why are they still having assigned cubes? If most of the employees are remote, why not have open cube or open office?
I think for a lot of companies, it has more to do with we're using what we got until it's time to replace it.
Right, but because she's on the third floor in an unpopulated area of the building, so basically the dark stairwell. Why would we place an employee there? That's
some employees actually would choose that. Like, get me away from the hubbub of the office. The work I have to do requires me to be very focused and uninterrupted.
Right.
I could totally understand it. Like, I've had that moment in IT where it's kind of like, just like shove me into the back of Beyond, and I will work for days, probably to my detriment. But no, really, it would be an improvement over being like right next to someone, or someone's very close by. But at some point, you would think that, and as Brenda points out, security, yes, but the way they monitor workflow, you would think, hey, she's falling behind, or why is that late? I don't know that there's good answers for that right now. I'm thinking it may have something to do with what her job role actually was.
Right. But what gets me, and the other thing that I'm like, how does this happen? Is if my computer is not active, there's alert, like there's a tone that goes off, and it will drive anyone mad. You're telling me that the network that I work for is more attentive to their employees' activities than a bank?
In some instances, yes, they may be paying more attention to their work from home employees than their work in office employees.
Right.
Whether they're active. Because there is this assumption that you're active if you're in office, versus if you're work from home, you could be anywhere doing nothing. So we still have that to contend with.
Right.
But again, it can sometimes end up in role. Like in terms of if what she were doing were some form of like auditing, forensic accounting, it may not be a job that necessarily requires her to how to best say it, that the role itself may not require or have any clear way of deciding if she's working.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes if you're doing certain things, you just have to go with the quality of the work, not necessarily how much did you move the mouse, how many phone calls did you make, how many cells did you update. Sometimes it's working through like how like what is this, what am I looking at, how does it like fit together, is this legitimate, and there's a number of roles like that may not necessarily have the kind of productivity cycle that we're used to seeing with companies that heavily monitor activity.
Right. And this causes me to also wonder how many remote workers are dead at their desk and no one knows.
I think that's probably a little less likely on the work from home side, depending upon like a worker's like statuses.
Right.
Like they're married and have children and are close in their communities. I think we may have seen some of that occurring during the panini and lockdown and no one going out, is that you would have that opportunity that someone may not notice you're missing. I think in most instances, many people would be noticed like within probably 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
But in some circumstances, I'm kind of judging by her age.
Right.
Is because at her age, it would kind of suggest that, she's 60, that she's most likely in something that isn't just like entry level. She's not most likely doing data entry. She's more likely in an advanced role. And then couple that with like personality traits, she's unmarried or divorced. If her entire life was her job, and she worked really long hours and was known to be someone that, please don't interrupt her, that liked being off to herself, that was typically quiet and didn't interrupt others. Like, it's the unfortunate reality of, when you like your solitude, that this unfortunately can happen.
Right. And unfortunately, I'm worried for Wells Fargo's security because that computer was open for 4 days. And there was no alert set off that computer was open into the system.
Awkwardly not surprising.
Scarily surprising.
Actually, that's the weirdo part. They're typically, in most instances, and especially in work on site, and especially on or in a building with security and secured floors, there's usually actually less software and considerations. Now, there would be heavy considerations for data leaving the building, data being moved over to thumb drives and external storage medium. There would be heavy monitoring for what someone prints.
Right.
That would all be monitored. But in most instances, even if there is monitoring for that, it's just going to make an audit trail record of an event.
Right.
It's not going to send a message out to, an IT person in the middle of the night. Oh my God, someone's logged in, and still logged in, or has been logged on for days. And quite frankly, pardon?
It should.
Well, but that also assumes that's what occurred. Now, if she, depending upon when she passed in her day,
right.
If she were to decease before she logged in, if she had logged in but that computer automatically locked for inactivity, if she made it through to lunch and had logged out for lunch but didn't log back in, none of those would necessarily generate an event.
Right. And see, I think that should generate events. Her being scanned in the building for 4 days. You mean there are people that could be living in their offices? That's scary.
Awkwardly not for the company.
I know.
It's as long as access control systems are mostly concerned with the right people having the right access at the right time, being denied access when they're not supposed to be there,
Mhm.
And generally, as long as the if it's a 24/7 operating building, it may
Right.
not be that abnormal. Not to mention, you don't want to necessarily have a freak out
Right.
every time someone, tailgates
Right.
someone in or out of the building.
Right.
Like, it's important. You don't want that to happen into the building.
Right.
But as far as leaving, sometimes a card doesn't scan. Sometimes someone's in a hurry. It may not necessarily, in most cases,
Right.
be a significant event.
Right.
So again, it's kind of one of those perfect storm moments
Right.
of like, it sounds like everything lined up together. Now, if she also had an upcoming vacation
Mhm.
and she was wrapping stuff up and was supposed to have been gone after this,
Mhm.
it could also lead to other people thinking, well, she went ahead and left on her vacation.
Right.
She was supposed to, clock out on Friday,
Right.
and then she was going to be gone until Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Right.
Like, there's a number of things that could, unfortunately,
Right.
explain it in a way that it's like no one expected her to be any.
Right.
As up to and including life choices.
Right.
Like, we like to think that, so all of us have someone who's going to notice.
Right.
Not everyone does.
Well, and what gets me, so yeah, according to their employees, they use the same computer, so the software should be the same software. What gets me is there is no alerts sent out to Wells Fargo. They have 24-hour security. Is that at the door? Like, why is there someone not walking those floors? Why is it a system not in place that locks down your data and alerts the next head up that this computer has been inactive for 12 hours? Why is it that no one even made notice that this woman was even there for 4 days?
Yeah, it depends upon what, and for most companies, you're more concerned about, personal physical safety in terms of no one getting into the building that shouldn't be in the building.
Right.
Stopping and subduing anyone who either gets into the building unauthorized or behaves in a way that is aggressive towards others.
Right.
Protecting data and equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise,
right,
like, it's not meant for most buildings to be a nanny state.
Right.
Where we're going to come through and we're going to, like, check on you and ask you how you're doing and do a welfare check. And like, it's typically not that concerned of a security process for most companies. And that's if they even have one.
Right.
Now, with past experience of waking a boss of mine up in the middle of the night, because I oopsied, I stayed late.
Right.
And the problem with me staying late was that is that the building did not, like, it had fob access, as in it's so to speak, a key card access kind of system. They were just little fobs for your keys. But for that building, there was a separate process to actually arm the alarm system.
Right.
So up till the point you arm the alarm system, you can freely move in and out of the building, and it doesn't have any problems.
Right.
Like the excuse me, the glass break sensors are off. Like, all of that's turned off.
Right.
So I ended up having to work really late, and I had lost track of time. So at about 1:00 in the morning, because I was so locked in on what I was doing, My phone on my desk rings, and I about jumped through the ceiling tiles. Because it's my boss's boss, who has immediately concluded that if someone is still in the building, it has to be me.
Right.
Called my desk directly, and she's like, "Why are you still in the office?"
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, "Because I'm working." She's like, "Joe, it's 1:30 in the morning." What? Like, I knew I was working late. I didn't mean to work that late. Lost all track of time, had no clue. And she's like, "Okay." And I was like, "Well, how do you know?" And she said the alarm company called because we didn't set the alarm. Oh. Gotcha.
Yeah.
She said, "I figured it was you."
Uh-huh. Because no one else is calling collections at this time in the morning.
Well, no, it was more so that thing of like, my boss was out by like 5:01 p.m. My other two coworkers were like 5:05 p.m. Anyone else in the building was lined up to clock out the minute their shift ended. I was the weirdo. She was too. That's like, because where I originally lived when I started this job, I could leave at 5:00 and get home at 7. Or I could leave at 7 and get home at 7:20. I'll go ahead and work the extra hours.
Right.
That's just more ahead than I am because traffic was so bad. So I was like, I'll just stay for a couple hours. Because I'd rather sit here and work than sit in my car in bumper to bumper traffic and, think horrible thoughts about other people.
True. I mean, you take the positive side of things. Knowing from my past experience, it's surprising that the system, and I think that there was probably a manager that after this is all over is going to get a conversation about why do you not pay attention to your phone? Because the old system, and granted, we're going back 20 years, and it wasn't a phone at that time, it was pagers. If the system was left unlocked for too long, i.e. more than 8 hours, it would alert and it would send a message to a pager that this system is vulnerable.
Well, and that was sort of how the office that I worked in functioned. Is that because my boss's boss often worked till the wee hours of the night, she had set the alarm company cutoff for 1 a.m. So if the system's not armed by 1 a.m., they call her. She didn't live all that far away. She could just be like, "Oh, crap," and turn around and go lock the building. Which she did more than once. It was the first time in a while she actually was at home. Turned out her husband didn't like me much because I went on to do it like 2 or 3 more times. But they would call it like 1 something in the morning and be like, "Is everything okay?" But we often, and we actually did have a situation on a Friday night, in which I did, by that point, no longer worked Fridays. Everyone else left at 4:30 on Friday. She was working alone. This is my boss's boss. She had several anniversaries of her 29th birthday, but I will not give an exact age. And she was walking across the building. It had been a client visit day. She was still in her heels. And I don't know, stepped on a pebble in the carpet, something, rolled her ankle and broke it, and couldn't get up. That was the point she freaked out.
Right.
Because it's Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
She's in a secured building.
Right.
And just so happened to have her cell phone in her pocket.
Right.
Because she had to call her husband and crawl to the front door to let him in.
Right.
So that's one, I think, when her husband actually got his own access device to the building.
Right.
Because she suddenly realized that if, like, she fell and broke her neck,
right,
or hit her head or whatever and knocked herself unconscious, she could die. And no one would be able to get in or find her till Monday morning.
Right.
And that's on top of a few other issues that she had while working there. But that one in particular was the moment that, like, we all freaked out and were like, you have to have a better system with this.
Right.
You work insane hours. You and your husband often pass like ships, you know. Y'all, like, one of you goes home, the other one's already at work.
Right.
And so you could go a couple of days before your husband catches on.
Right.
Now, I don't think my wife's been here.
Right.
And it was a serious concern that we had for her safety.
Right.
But it took her falling and breaking her ankle before anyone actually stopped to think how unsafe the situation was. We had great security for the building. And all of it was going to work against her if something happened.
Right.
Like, because she was laying there on the floor freaking out.
Right.
That if she called 911, they're going to have to bust a window. And then she's like, and I'm the senior executive on site, and I'm not supposed to leave unless the building is secured. Right. So she's running through her head while she's waiting for her husband to get there, and trying to crawl to the front door. All the things that she would have to do in this moment if this were more serious.
Right.
Not that it wasn't already serious, it was bad.
Right.
If it had been more serious, all the things that could go wrong.
Right.
And it does. It sometimes takes the actual something went wrong
right.
before companies and people in general think
right.
about, why aren't we thinking about this? Why aren't we doing something proactively about this? Why
right.
aren't we, why are we allowing this?
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah, and what gets me and what makes it even more scarier is I know what one of their competitors do for their employees, and this would never happen there, even with the bullshit.
Well, but you have to back up and go, who did it happen to? Because Brenda points out that's why we weren't allowed to work alone. There always had to be two people. Someone broke a leg and was stuck there.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about other companies, you almost have to turn and look at them and go, who was your Denise?
Well, and that's a good question because I don't know. But the company, one of their biggest competitor, took very strong, good care of their employees.
Oh, and Shannon points out, I got a call one night after I quit the cafe. Someone put a brick through the window, and the owner didn't know I quit. Yeah. Like, there are sometimes that it's just people don't
right.
have the information. They don't know.
Right.
And in other instances, it's no one ever thought about.
Right.
Like, and it's one of those things. It takes a very special kind of person to walk through and think through scenarios in which horrible things happen to people
right
before they happen and go, okay, how do we plan around?
Right.
What do we do if this occurs?
But and again, this is from a company that has took advantage of its mortgagers, that has took and opened account after account. like their CEO. I'm more mad at their CEO than I am at the security company that is getting fired, that is getting sued. The CEO did not even send a condolence email to her team. They didn't send he didn't send condolences to the family. He has not made any contact with anyone else.
Oh, Shannon, you could make a fortune doing consulting for businesses for disaster planning.
Mm-hmm.
And like emergency mitigation.
Right.
As in pre-planning, like looking at a building and how people work within it and what's going on, and creating scenarios in which this is unsafe, you need an alternative. This is unsafe, you need an alternative.
Right.
And proposing policies, proposing, different ways of ensuring the welfare of others. Like, it's a job. It's a well-paying job.
Right. But no, like they would not allow, if you worked overtime, you couldn't drive home. Like we've talked, and I'm like, that's not how that's done.
You were horrified.
Yeah.
Like what got you was when I was talking about the Friday that the Saturday that the server went down. Our company did half-day Saturdays once a month, and IT worked them on rotation.
Right.
And so this particular Saturday morning at precisely 9 a.m., our server crashed.
Right.
I mean, crash and burn. Crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And I proceeded to, of course, have to alert my boss, who called all of us in. And so we worked on this all day Saturday. We're there all day Saturday night.
Right.
Worked all day Sunday. We're there all day, all Sunday night. Right. And finally, by 8 a.m. on Monday morning, this system was back online.
Right.
All I wanted, a shower, change of clothes, and breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
3 things I was interested: shower, change of clothes, and breakfast. I got none of them, and worked until 9 o'clock that night.
Right.
So I went in on Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I left work at 9 p.m. on Monday.
Right.
Now, I will say during that time, and keep in mind I was in my 20s, so I'm not, Miss Prudhomme's age, but for that period, no one called to check on me.
No.
I could have been dead in that building.
Mm-hmm.
For all anyone in my family knew, any of my friends knew, any of my other coworkers knew. No one called and said anything.
Right. Now let's compare, and I'm not going to name the company, but let's compare. What I can share. We were not allowed to work over 8 hours in a building. If we are in the building and our key would not let us out, we would have to have car service called for us, and they would pick us up. All meals provided. When I mean all meals, we're talking all 4 meals provided, as long as you're in the building. They have backup child service. What does that mean? Let's say that your child is in daycare and their daycare canceled. They can't go to daycare that day. They have a list of people for you to choose from that the company is sending to your house to babysit your children. Holidays, they have matching gifts. What's that mean? That means if it is 4th of July and you are stuck at work, on the 6th of July, there is going to be a package of all the 4th of July goodies arriving at your home. Unquestioned. They had dry cleaning and hair services in the building. Free to employees.
And again, larger companies can often support bigger services that smaller companies can't.
Right.
Though granted, Wells Fargo is a very sizable business.
Right.
And now to answer Brenda's question for
Mhm.
better overtime and double time pay, emergency out-call pay, we and responding to your food idea,
Right.
I think we ordered Chinese and pizza,
Mm-hmm.
which the company did pay for. I was salary, so they gave us 4 hours of comp time that we had to use within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. See, that's not allowed either.
All right. So
Yeah.
before Brenda starts cutting us off, I think we got to move over to Am I the Asshole?
We do. Let's go.
All right. Am I the asshole for not reading my parents' divorce papers? My 29 female parents are divorced. I lived with my mom and visited my father every 2 weeks. He had to pay alimony. Sometimes he would pay too little or none. He'd pay some back, but not all. We really relied on it since it was for food and rent, and my mom did not yet have a job. When I went to university, my father had to pay me alimony child support too. I wanted him to continue to transfer the money to my mom since I had my tax insurance with her. My mom had sued him for the missing alimony and won. He was angry at first, but then happy she had to pay a lot more tax due to it. Eventually, he found out my bank details and transferred it directly to me. Same thing happened, and he'd missed pay. Here, I might be the asshole because I kept bringing this up quite often, but it was a difficult time for us. He did eventually pay everything back, so I might be too resentful. There are other occasions, though, that worsened our relationship gradually. He'd always wish for expensive gifts, like a 700 pound, this is someone in Europe, 700 euro model railway, and in turn got me nothing. Forgot my birthday or got me something meaningless, M&Ms for my 18th birthday. He'd also blame me for things like not yet calling my granny for her birthday, even though I'd have a few hours later. So a year ago, he wrote me a message stating that he was fed up with me for mentioning this alimony thing again in some other context and blocked me. He told me to go look for other people to exploit and that I should be more thankful that I could go to university and do my job thanks to his support, and that I was very money hungry. I had no way of contacting him, but he'd eventually wrote to me a few weeks later that he'd think about letting me back into his life and about forgiving me when I looked through the divorce papers to finally see the truth. So from this first message onwards, I basically stopped writing him or visiting him. I cried a lot after this. It was like losing my father. I don't think I can ever see him the same as before. I felt really miserable. Looking through the documents feels futile, and every contact with him now makes me feel miserable. I visited a few months after this for his wife's birthday. I wrote down what I wanted to talk about, but wanted to do that after the party in private. Unfortunately, they left for holidays the next day early in the morning, so we never got to talk it out, and he also pretended like nothing ever happened. Months later, he sent another message blaming me for never writing to him and saying again that if I don't read those documents to see the truth, I will have to live with the consequences. I fear that my point of view is too one-sided, but I also feel like my life is better without him, and I am not truly seeing myself as the bad guy in this. I also don't feel like I exploited my parents. Am I the asshole? All right, there's some edits, but they're thank yous and insights. Oh, but there are some. Okay, he paid only until I finished my education, which was years ago. I don't live off him, and also during university I had a job, and I never asked him for money. He simply did not pay what the judge made him pay on time, which made it difficult to pay bills. My mother was not unemployed. She just earned a lot less than he did. He has a very good salary, but tends to spend too much. While I did bring up the fact that he left us struggling more than once, it was certainly not often, and I never asked him for money. I just felt left alone without him caring what happened to us. The initiator for this conflict was not me bringing it up in front of him, but I talked to my brother about it, and he told my father something along the lines, I don't know what exactly, which made him go no contact. My brother lives with him and agrees with me. His relationship to him is maybe sometimes worse. We also have a half-brother that we, his siblings, visit, but my father saw him last 14 years ago when he was a few months old. I saw a few of the documents prior to all this, and there was nothing important in it. It seems like a farce. I did make the effort to go visit him. It's 6 hours away, and talk about it with the intention of reading these documents, but he pretended like everything was normal until I left. He tends to write mean things, but in real life, he seems to have forgotten it all. He also never visited me. It was always I who had to make the effort to see or contact him. He has never been particularly interested in my life, something I only realized when I met my stepfather, who was much more of a father than he ever was, at least in my teenage years and adult life. For a long time, I really wanted to mend this broken bond, but he keeps writing mean things to me. My stepmother, to whom I have a good relationship, tries to convince me to be the bigger person or whatever. All right, that's a post.
Nope, firing.
Yeah, I can't see OP as the asshole here. I do. I mean, there's two schools of thought. Is one that, like, your teenage kids, while they need to understand how finances work, don't necessarily need to be put in the middle of.
Right.
But unfortunately, if you're having to sue your ex to get the money that they owe you, there's kind of no way around that not being obvious.
Right.
So, unfortunately, as much as I would like to, have a little bit of a moment there that, like, maybe mom should have shut her mouth, as I would say about if it were reversed, that, parents need to keep their kids as much as possible out of the squabbling of divorce and alimony and child support and all that. I think this basically hit a situation where she did everything she could. It's kind of obvious why the bills aren't getting paid. And with a lawsuit, there's really no way to shut that down. So I have to give OP's mom credit. It sounds like, did everything she could to shield her kids from this. And then, but her ex just kept pushing it as far as it could possibly get.
Right.
Meanwhile, OP's dad seems like a keyboard warrior who really likes stirring the pot by text. And I'm thinking there's got to be some kind of this is while he's drunk.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this is some weird, like, he goes off by himself and, like, in the dark, just sits there and says a bunch of garbage. And then I don't know that he remembers.
No, that's a good possibility. But at the same time, I'm like, no, firing. If he can't not A, be an adult, C, not include you in none of your business other than your money is due on the 15th, where's my check, then he needs to grow a pair and leave it alone and form a working relationship. If they do not do that, then fire him. This is weighing you down and not doing you well at all.
I mean, I think I might express some concern to the stepmother that, like, has he been to a doctor?
Right.
Like, does he have a medical condition going on? Like, is he, like, doing drugs? Is he something? Is he an alcoholic? Like, what do I not know? Because this seems really sporadic.
Right.
But it also kind of seems like the stepmother isn't wanting to tell her everything.
Right.
And it's like, I think this is one of those situations that might get better.
Right.
Incrementally better. but better. Knowing all the facts of what's going on and like why is the dad doing this.
Right.
Like, even if it is like his choices have caused him to get so drunk he texts you random crap in the middle of the night, and blacks out and doesn't remember it. I would think that as the child, you could at least like take it in that like this isn't him. This is the alcohol. This is the drugs. This is the whatever that's controlling this, and at least go whatever, Dad.
Right.
Might make it a little easier to maintain the relationship without it getting as awkward as it seems to have become.
Right. I don't think so. Sorry. Move on.
Fair enough.
All right, let's move on to relationship advice. The poll is up. I say he's an asshole, not you. What do y'all say?
All right. So relationship advice. Another man sexualized me and my husband is mad at me for it. 32 male, 30 female. My husband, 32 male, and myself, 30 female, were hanging around another couple that we just recently met in the last few months. During our visit, the husband continuously made comments about my body. He commented about how big my chest was, that I looked good, and randomly found ways to bring up my appearance throughout the evening. He made these comments in front of his wife, and she just laughs. He laughs, my husband laughed, so I laughed too. I kind of just chalked it up to his personality and thought he was an odd character. Maybe a bit of a horn dog, but it didn't bother me too much since it seemed more like a joke. However, my husband is furious with me that I didn't correct the man who said these things to me. In my opinion, his wife should have first corrected him. I would have been pissed if my husband made comments like that to other women. Secondly, I feel like my husband should have said something if it truly bothered him the way it did. Maybe it's just me being traditional, but I feel like your husband should protect you, and I feel like him not saying anything the first time a comment was made gave the other man the idea that it was an acceptable behavior to continue. Now my husband is calling me disloyal and saying this is all my fault because I allowed the behavior by not speaking up for myself. I'm just lost here, wondering if this is my fault. I feel like he should have shut this down instead of expecting me to. I thought of bringing this up to his wife, but I'm not super confrontational. I'm not a super confrontational person and struggle with anxiety.
Your husband's an asshole. First of all, it's not your fault. If he had a problem with it, he should have said something. My advice to you, be a little bit more bitchier, because apparently your husband's a wimp. What's your thoughts?
I mean, part of me wants to sit here and have this moment of like, you know, if she was comfortable with it or comfortable enough that it was a joke and it was funny, then I don't think her husband has any place to get angry.
Right.
If what he chose in that moment wasn't to say something like, I don't appreciate that, and I don't think she does either.
Right.
And that if anything, I would expect her to be angry at him.
Right.
And I don't like, what kind of friends are these? I'm not going back there. We're never hanging out with them again. I was as socially appropriate as I could be.
Right.
And we're not doing that again.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm trying to put myself in her position.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I'll like sexual comments, sexual jokes. I would tend to probably just laugh at it and go on.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were uncomfortable with it or it wasn't something I liked, I would be socially appropriate or socially polite And try to, like, okay, well, that's your friend, and if that's how you think that's supposed to go, whatever. But I'd say once we left, I would just look at you and be like, I'm not going back there.
All right, so let's flip you over to the husband's side, because you've been on the husband's side before.
Okay. One, I would kind of look for you to like if the comments are being made about you, then it's up to you whether you're finding those inappropriate or the behavior or whatever it may be inappropriate.
Right.
So on one hand, I am going to look for you to lead that, but I'm going to rock whatever you decide on.
Right.
Like, if that's just the way, you like two people talk to each other and you're okay with it, then I'm that's fine. It's your body. If you're comfortable, then we'll just do that. If you're not comfortable with that, then yeah, I'm going to be uncomfortable with it too. And probably again be the one that goes, well, we're not doing that again.
Right, because we had a situation like this. Yeah, and he went into bear mode, which I thought was very hot, and basically told the dude exactly how far he could go and where he could get off at on the train of get the fuck out of here.
Like I generally my problem isn't like, I mean, I have to kind of moderate for the fact that we are a little bit more open. We're a little bit more, in some situations, maybe it's a flirtation that, you have every right to accept or reject. And that's cool, whatever. But if you're not cool with it, I'm not cool with it. If you're cool with it, then whatever. It's not going to bother me.
But there's been a number
I'm not
of times
going to throw
you've
it
had to
back
step
at
up
you
and go.
later.
Oh, no, never. Never have you thrown it back at me later. Never have you said, well, you were asking for it, which is what I feel like this husband's doing, or anything like that.
Like, he's beyond you were asking for it, and he's into, like, it's your job to shut all that down. And it's like, these are your friends? Or, well, no, this is a couple they met recently.
Right.
I think it's one of those, like, I cannot believe she wasn't just having a moment where her face is like, can we leave now?
Right. Yeah, like we're leaving. Or they're leaving, one of the two. But,
or that, like, what the fuck?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Brenda, for doing what I've asked you to do. Are you the asshole is in?
Yay! Am I the
and
asshole?
you're not the asshole for not wanting to read your parents' documents.
Or for thinking that you shouldn't even have to, or what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, what is the great secret?
That maybe she cheated and, he has every right to be mad at her. Whatever. That's not your daughter's relationship. All right. And to the other one, beat your husband up and tell him to grow up hair. Protect you.
Or get over it.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Brenda, Joan Owen, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Caitlin Bell, Devin, and Maria Meyer. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
Yes, and everyone's loving your lights. I guess you're going to have to lighten up my background when I move into the studio.
I know, right?
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you on Friday for Mountain Bears. You guys have a good evening. Bye, y'all.
Bye.